Hey everyone, Shade Raven again on my continual series called Pathfinder 2 Made Easy on Fantasy Grounds. In this episode, we're going to be talking about the basics for players joining a campaign and getting started. Again, these early guides are for the new players or people curious about how Pathfinder 2 plays on Fantasy Grounds. So we're going to jump right into it. I try not to be as long-winded as I was in the first one, where I noticed there was a bunch of downtime. So with a player, when you're coming in, you will see the starting screen for Fantasy Grounds. Again, you can check for updates if necessary. But for now, we know we don't need one, so we're going to join a campaign. Here, when you look to join campaigns, but you'll see a list of all the available cloud ones. You can see some with locks. That means they are password protected. Uh, there are some, I'm actually not sure, you know, what it's like to join in one that's not, you are not necessarily directly invited to, but we're obviously going to be concentrating on joining a campaign you're expected in. So again, we know that Shade Raven is hosting this one, and we can see that I had started a campaign from that first video called PF2 First Run. It is easily found by doing searching the cloud name for the GM name. There's Shade Raven there, and we're going to click start and try to join that one. It'll come up, it'll say it's trying to connect to the server. It will, I believe, say, hey, you need to put in a password. And sure enough, you do. If I remember right, it's PF2 Easy. I hope that's it. Otherwise, I'll have to go look it up and see if we can't join that one with the correct password. And then you will see that it's now trying to reconnect to the server and acquiring the file list. This is where it's going to be getting those modules I talked about in the first one that the GM, either sets to automatically load or allows. In this case, I think most of the things are set to automatically load because I want players to have, as the GM in that case, access to all of the different rules that I want them to, have access to in the campaign that I'm running. We can see that it's acquiring a file list right now. Uh, Going up pretty steadily, even with the multitude of books I have. Pretty quick load. We've seen that the file's been acquired. Now it's just gathering in information and preparing it for the initial screen that you will see as you come in as a player. This shouldn't take too long, even again with all the books we have loaded. And even though this is like the first time in, so there might be some initial load stuff that I, have to get through to start. And let's see, I'm going to guess it's going to come up any second. Yeah, there it is. So as a player, you will see us jumping right in. You get sort of the basic look of the desktop. If you're familiar with what I went over in the GM one, you will see your campaign set up at first. Didn't mention this as a GM, but I'm going to take a quick drink here. There is a show on load button if you don't, if you get comfortable with the settings you have, that you can click off so this one doesn't pop up all the time. The options window as a player, we'll go over that real quick. A lot of this is set by the GM, but there are some things you do have control over as a player. Remember combat actions and things like that. I mentioned this in the kind of the initial GM one. Most of the stuff, really, just the default settings are going to be perfect. Don't need to worry about it too much. But as you get more involved in campaigns, play more, you might want to start tweaking and looking at things that maybe you think, would help make your game run a little bit, easier, or have the display settings you want. You can also see, some of the things that the GM sets. If you're curious as to what they are running, you can see them there as well. I don't have a message of the day, but there will be a message of the day pop up if you're a GM that likes to kind of give an opening, piece of information setting. I used to do dad jokes, to be honest, in that box. So with that in mind, the options are pretty, obvious. Like I said, toy around with them, but you can live with just the default ones. We'll look quickly at one of the important things when you get going is the modules window. This is where you see what books and stuff you have available to you right away. even as a player, that's really important. I think I talked about before where in this campaign I had turned off guns and gears. Now, again, I see all the stuff for me, but I think if I look at guns and gears, we could see that I might have. Oh, we only have the legacy version. The remastered version isn't there. Actually, I suppose if I was the GM and I wanted to do this smartly, I would have restricted the use of both. But we see the remastered version of guns and gears is not available. So even if I you know, have the information and want to be able to use it, I don't have the easy access to it from the books right there. If I was running the Orc version, the Orc Gaming License version that gives sort of all the basic stuff, I probably should have mentioned this on the GM one. One thing about the Orc side of things, it does have all the classes, has all the feats, has all the equipment and all that. The one thing it doesn't have, along with not being able to give away the images, you will not have the full reference manual. You can sit down and just read like a book. It will just have the information. Everything you need to run, everything you need to have as a player or as a GM is in the Orc stuff. You will have the key components to playing the game, but you won't have the reference manuals, essentially the kind of the online in Fantasy Grounds PDFs, so to speak, versions of the rules, but you will have the individual aspects in that. So if you want to read about a class, you could still go over here to character and go under classes and say you wanted to look at what the barbarian was. And this information will be in the Orc version, as well as obviously the versions that are from the full rule books. All right, that said, as a player, I'm not going to load up the Guns and Gears one. Let me think, was there something else I wanted to do that maybe the GM didn't give me initially, but I wanted to have access to? How about Divine Mysteries? You can see in this case, we'll look at the Divine Mysteries from the Lost Omen series. The GM, in this case, hey, look, he is allowing it, but he didn't automatically load it. Didn't necessarily think everybody wanted that information or was pertinent, but I am going to be playing, maybe a more pious character, and I want to have access to that stuff. I can load that individually for myself. Clicking there, I will see suddenly the Lost Omen sections and showing me that I have Lost Omen Divine Mysteries loaded into this campaign. I can see all the individual elements that come with that. You can see the reference manual of the book is available here, pulling up, like I said, essentially the Fantasy Grounds PDF version of the rules that I can read through at my leisure. And we'll see under the library, when I go to books over here, it'll be listed in Lost Omen Divine Mysteries is one of the books I have access to. Again, depending on what you're looking for, like let's say I wanted to play a summoner, I wanted Secrets of Magic, I could come to Module Activation, type in Secrets, or Secret in this case, and look, Secrets of Magic is available. Didn't automatically load, but it is available for me to add to the list of books that I want to have reference to, or maybe pull characters and feats or spells from. And just with a simple click, bang, all the information for Secrets of Magic is now in here. I got all the new spells, nice list of a whole bunch of new ones. I got, magic items, the feats, and of course the Magus and Summon are available as well. So pretty easy. You're looking for a book. If the GM owns it, gives access to it, there it is. You can have it quickly loaded for you. As someone who does a lot of GMing, if you see a book that you really love and would like to have part of the campaign, talk to your GM. Maybe even, if you want the full version where you have all the bells and whistles, like the images and stuff like that, if it's not available for free through the Orc licensing, go out there, buy the book for the GM as a gift so that you and everybody else could share it in the campaign. Because once it's added to the campaign, once the GM has access to it, everybody can have access to it, depending on how the GM sets the settings. Again, I went over that in the last one. So here you are as a player. You've looked over. You're pretty satisfied with the books you have access to. You don't think you need to add anything more. In this case, maybe I'm not looking for any of this fancy stuff. If I decided, you know what, I don't really need to see all the secrets of magic stuff, I'm just going to unload that. It won't appear, won't add extra classes or extra feats that I have no interest in, and I'll just get rid of that as quickly as just a single button. Bam, it's gone. So let's go back. You've gotten in, you're looking to play, um, and you want to get started with your first character. So with that in mind, we pop up here. You could see here's my username, whatever you get, and you create a username. Set up your account so you can access the cloud server and all that when you first get into play. I probably should have mentioned this before. We can go out to fantasygrounds.com to download for free the software that'll let you play it on your PC. You can play it on your Mac. I'm more familiar with the PC side of things, the Windows, and run it. It's pretty quick installation. You can use all the defaults. Shouldn't be any problem there. And away you are off and running. Like I said, probably should have mentioned it first, but here we are. Okay, so now we're ready to get that first character. Up top, I can see my name. I could double click that, I believe. Maybe not. Maybe I have to do the add item first. I don't get to be a player that often. All right, now we successfully added a new character. We can see it up here has an own name. I could double click there because I'm in there. You will, as you create characters, you can go over to the player side of thing and pull up the character selection menu. Once this character is created and all that, you will see this start to populate with different characters. You can make a number of characters. A player who likes to create a bunch just to kind of toy with some different ideas and then ask, for some of them to be removed. But we'll start out with a guy named Gurgon. I'm not even really sure what I want to do with him yet. I just want to kind of get going with a character. So Gurgon. First thing you'll notice, you have your basic character sheet here. You can see, your attributes and all the different blocks in the opening character sheet that will be populated as you create this character. But the more important side of things is this thing called the tracker, which popped up to the right of this, where all the action happens when you're creating a character. And in the sequence of creating a character, you start with picking an ancestry. I'm not the core character. What are you when you are born? And then you can pick off, some of the things as we go along that continue to develop that first character creation. This little box below where you see the quick filters, this will be important to pay attention to too, because it'll have tell you what's going on with your character, and it'll also give you these very obvious little indicators on what things you might need to do in addition to the automated stuff. So let's get going with Gurgon. Ancestries. Click that. This will be populated by those that are available through the different modules you have open. Again, if some of the Lost Omen stuff, I'm sure there are, have some of the different ancestries available, opening up one of those books would then give that amongst the selection options when you open up your ancestry things. If you thought, oh crap, I wanted to use the ancestry from this source book, we could have come in here, click the activation, gone found that source book. I'll be honest, again, I don't get to play a ton. Maybe something, I don't remember if Draconic Codex has any. Feels like, something like T&Z might have had some new ancestries. It does not, in fact. But if I were to open that up, it would add new ones for new options, and we would have been seeing them be able to populate this. If you accidentally close this before selecting, not a big deal. Just come back, click Ancestry again, pull it back open, and get those options. But for this case, we'll just say, what do we want Gurgon to be? For now, we're going to make it something pretty easy. none of the exotic ones. You know, it could be Kolo or some of the other creatures. Leshy, if I wanted to be sort of a plant creature. But I just want to be a basic dwarf in this case. Don't need to be too complicated to start. Let's get used to fantasy grounds and Pathfinder 2 before jumping into anything exotic. So I've chosen dwarf, and that comes up with a couple of the key additions that come with dwarf when you start. Probably could have mentioned this before, but these things along each of the options have little information boxes. Like if I wanted to read up what ancient blooded dwarf was, it will show me, hey, ancient blooded dwarf gets a little brief description, and in this case, the ancient blooded dwarf gets an additional kind of activity it can do called Call on Ancient Blood that lets me try to make a additional saving throw. That would be a part of the Ancient Blooded. I can go down and read through these really quick, but I've already decided a while ago that I want to be a strong-blooded dwarf. He has, you know, toyed with and been, you know, a little bit of an experimenter with various nefarious things growing up, including poisons, and it's given him a little resistance to it. So I popped in there, and it will have, on the character sheet, added the features from the Ancient Blooded Dwarf. We could even see some of the stuff initially down here in that box I told about, the information box, where it talks about what's been added. We can see dark vision, some heritage added, the speed and the size and all that gets added. And we can see the ancestry has been also implemented as well, along with the strong-blooded dwarf features. Go over that real quick in a second. Along with the dwarf, which got wisdom and con as bonus attribute boost, with a flawless charisma, dropping the charisma. Believe it or not, he actually is not as strong as, you know, a lot of people think of as dwarves. This guy's a little, more dexterous. He's learned how to be a little more wily as these come up. So I've decided to throw dexterity as my free boost to that. And if we can look over here quickly on the character sheet, we can see how these attributes have already affected this character. His charisma is -1, and he's got the +1 dex, con, and wisdom from his ancestry choices. You can also see down here, in that little tracking box I was talking about, a very obvious, very bold, kind of a darker red, +++, add 1 ancestry feat. Pay attention to those, because when they pop up, it means, hey, there's something else I should do before moving on to the next section. You can, by the way, move ahead, have forgotten something, and still go back and add these ancestry feats at a later date. Obviously, preferably before you start playing the character, because they certainly have effect on the game. For the ancestry feat, I see there's a feat quick filter section up here, right in the middle of this tracker page. By clicking on that, it'll pull up my ancestry feat options for dwarf. Doughtiness, some lore, some weapon familiarity, mountain strategy, rock runner, stonemason's eye, and unburdened iron. I'm curious, what does dwarven weapon familiarity mean? So I decided to pop in there, kind of read down through there. Any weapon with a dwarf trait, plus battle axe, pick, and warhammer. I don't know if I'll necessarily need them, but I do like the idea that this character has really, integrated itself with the dwarven culture. So if anything is specifically for dwarves, he would have been exposed to it, and I want him to have that. Had I wanted him to have more lore on things, or like, if I would have looked at, say, Rock Runner, you could see that it helps him go across the kind of the rough terrain and stuff and be able to run across that. But in this case, I've decided he wants to have that. So that looks good. I could just simply come up here, add the PC Dwarven Weapon Familiarity, and voila! It has been added to your character. There's even a little hyperlink here if I was like, hey, what did I pick again? Oh, okay. Yep, still works for me. And we have added that ancestry feat that it kind of indicated we needed still down there. So we feel pretty comfortable. We got our ancestry done. We popped down the background. And again, popping a background, huge list. There are a lot of options here. And you could spend a good amount of time reading through many of these. And you can find, numerous reasons for just about anything to be added to a character. But I've already decided this guy's got grown up on the wrong side of the mountain, and is a little bit, has a little experience with the more nefarious activities in the under earth part of the world. So I could look at it real quick just to make sure is sort of what I wanted to. Look at it, the possibility he has a criminal background. Yeah, you know what? I know a lot of dwarves are law-abiding, but no, this one didn't come from those easy, um, strong family connections with the law and upholding dwarven honor. Nah, he's had a bit of a rough go, and yeah, he had a bit of a criminal background. It'll give me either dexterity or intelligence as one of my attribute boosts, along with a free one, which you get with Pathfinder 2 character creation. Also, we're going to get the stealth skill. Definitely want that. And some underworld lore that, explains, that I've learned a lot about the more subtle things that go on in the underworld. I'm also going to get an experienced smuggler skill feat for free. All that sounds perfect. So quickly adding criminal to this character. I mentioned before, I get to choose one of these two. I kind of want him to be crafty and intelligent, but he has survived mostly by, being quick on his feet and getting out of trouble when things get rough. So I am going to choose dexterity. But as the second free boost for another attribute, you know what? I don't want to, ignore the intelligence side of things. I do want to, have a little bit of street smarts, and I'm going to pick up intelligence there as well. So I decided to grab that there, despite not choosing it in the first option. If we look down here, we can see, no new plus 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 buttons saying we needed to add anything. We've just gotten our new feat, some new skills added to our character. We'll talk about that just real briefly. You can see how it's changed the character already. As we look at the tabs down off the main page, we've been focusing mostly on the main page here, but there's a skills tab, and we could see with the underworld lore, we already got training there, which gives us the +2 along with the intelligence attribute bonus, and a stealth that came with that also gave a +2. So right away, we have those two skills already trained, and he's got some bonuses for him. We can also look, sure enough, there's the experienced smuggler, the dwarven weapon familiarity available to this character from its background and ancestry already, along with some of the abilities and stuff that came from being a dwarf, additional languages, feats, and stuff like that. We're happy there, and now we're going to look at the class. Could go a bunch of different ways, but again, we're trying to just get off to a good, solid, strong character that fits the background and kind of the storyline I'm going with this. So in this case, he is going to be a dwarven rogue. We can see from the books we have available to us right now, there are a bunch. Could have been a swashbuckler. Doesn't quite fit what I'm thinking of, but it could have made it work. But we're going to go with the rogue, the kind of the rugged, like I said, not as integrated into dwarven society as the other ones. Kind of walks outside the normal, very straight line paths that a lot of dwarves do, and that's what he's going to be. As we have selected rogue, we also see that there's a racket, which sort of helps further define what kind of rogue you are. Well, every class has sort of their own little niche that they can help further define what they are. So not every rogue is alike. You can customize each one, and obviously Pathfinder 2 pretty easily. There will be, in this case, these are all Pathfinder core ones. There will be additional books that might add, new rackets that will appear for the rogue. They will automatically populate this if you have those books available and open while you do your character creation. In fact, I'm almost sure I remember a new one that had come along recently. Off the top of my head, I don't remember if it's coming out in the new Hellfire Dispatches one, but there are definitely other ones available that will be here. We'll have the automation and all that for it if it's included in the campaign. For now, well, you see your kind of the thief, rogue, racket, someone that's been sort of a cat burglar. Um, Even though, as we can see down here, not a charismatic guy, but believe it or not, I've sort of decided, no, not the ruffian type. He hasn't been that. I want him to actually have thought about talking his way out of trouble because he can't always escape. Sometimes there's just not many open areas in the Underearth or the underworld. And I decided he's going to be a scoundrel. So I could read up on it and see, what's involved in that. But I've already kind of decided, yeah, he wants to be sort of a little bit of a silver tongue talker as this, kind of a rough and rugged dwarf. And I'm going to add that to the PC. It will put all the information, including the features that come with the rogue's racket of scoundrel, to here. But I believe if we scroll down, we chose this class. We'll see there was a couple things I skipped that popped up. Probably could have handled that before choosing the racket, but I kind of like to do things in order. But it's always good to scroll back, make sure you've picked everything. In this case, we see as part of picking up Rogue, he's going to get some new skills. He's going to get a Rogue feat and a skill feat. All the other stuff's been added already. We could see up here, one of the things it did mention is you could change your key ability to charisma if desired. And you can find that right here under class. Under level 1, you can see Dex. I could click this. Instead of being a dexterous rogue, I could have said, you know what? I really do want to lean into his quick talking ability and really want him to make that kind of rogue. In this case, I've decided not to. I still want Dex to be what he relies on most. I'm going to have the silver tongue scoundrel side of him be developed as the character grows. And I will lean into that more as I go along. But you could see that could have been set there. You could also see all the other ones would have been available if you wanted to try to talk to your GM about perhaps saying, giving a reason why I'm a silver tongue, I rely more on charisma to do it, or more on wisdom to do it, sort of street smarts, and see if your GM will agree to let you changing that. But that would certainly be between the GM and you, whether or not you want to go outside the lines and do something a little different. So we have these three things here. Before we choose a skill feat, probably important to choose all these skills because that will have some direct effect on what skill feats are available. We can even talk about how free boost could change that as well, because if you add intelligence under free boost, it gives you another skill, which would bring in more options available. But for now, let's go look at the skills page. The little skills tab here has the list of all the skills we normally see available. There are ways to add both a custom skill and a lore skill, sort of advanced stuff. I'm not going to worry about that in this session. We're going to go to the edit the list. And this allows you to change your proficiency on things. We see that I get 8 total skills. Wow. It feels like I'm going to get almost everything, but it will leave a couple that are left out. If you're familiar with the Pathfinder 2 rules, you can't go past train until, I believe, at level 3 you get to go to expert. So now we're going to be looking at the ones that have no proficiency left in them yet. Acrobat seems like an obvious one. We said he likes to get himself in and out of trouble. He also wants to be a bit athletic. Maybe strength is not a strong suit, but he's still had to live sort of a rough and rugged life. Talked about him being silver tongue. Deception seems like it would fit naturally with that as his third option. He has dabbled into some, dicey things. He's decided to pick up a little bit of occult as a fourth. Performance, because again, he is often getting involved in things where he may not be what he appears, as a fifth. Society, because sometimes that is, what you need when it comes to be, interacting with others. It's not always with the poor. He sometimes, works in the wealthier sections to try to get what he wants out of it. And then as 7th and 8th, I'm going to go with survival and, obviously thievery, because it feels like, I can be a rogue without thievery. That covers those 8. We'll come back to that in just a little bit. It also mentions that with these plus, like bold red, add a rogue feat. Well, up here, when we talked about the quick filters before with the ancestry, there is a class one clicking on this, we could see a nice list of available feats for this class based on the books we have open, all from the player core. Again, you can read these up really quickly. It'll tell what's involved with these. Some of them have automation to them that are easy to implement. That's why they have a little A next to it. For this guy, I want him to be able to nimbly dodge himself out of problems when he gets into trouble. So we're going to add that to the PC, give him a new activity. That information will be added, and then we can go back and look at the skill feat. Like before, we'll have a skill filtering button that'll pull up a very big list. Again, you can spend a lot of time kind of perusing these things to find out, what do I want out of this? What fits this character the most? In this case, I can see there's at least 2 pages of it. So there will be a lot of options here. In this case, there's a lot of good things here. But I've decided, and you'll have to double check to make sure you fit the prerequisites for everything. Like I couldn't take battle medicine because I didn't train medicine. But I know I've trained in acrobatics, and because there's these areas where he's from, I imagine has some, natural caverns with some crevices and stuff in it that fall into deep underground lakes. He's learned how to fall with some ability to avoid damage. So I'm picking up Catfall for this guy, and that'll be added to the character. Could pop over to abilities real quick, see the new feats added, and that is done. We've now come back to where we left off. We've got everything done to there. Character's almost finished. We just got some free boosts and a few other little details to add to it. Under free boosts, I want him to start working on that charisma. I said he wanted to be a little bit of a silver tongue. I've already mentioned I wanted to be intelligent because of that. And it was mentioned down here. If you add intelligence on your 4th step, you'll get another skill to add to it as a free boost. Certainly he's dexterous. I got some interesting options here, but I want him to be, does he want to be strong? Actually, he's, that side of things, never really developed into it, but his toying with poison stuff built up his system a little bit, so I give him Constitution. Ask me if I want to ask default equipment. In this case, I'm going to say sure, so I don't have to worry about it too much. And then I got to remember that I'm going to add a Thieves Toolkit. Pretty important for what he wants to do to the character. That takes off another 3 gold. We will see that stuff popping in inventory, including showing that things like the bedroll and the chalk are inside his backpack. Quickly added to the character. He's got his basic stuff out here in weapons. The new under actions, the new weapons that came with his choices. His Thieves Toolkit, we could see he has got like 113 silver worth of gear. And I could decide, hey, that's taken off of the starting silver he's got to indicate what he gets to go with. That leaves him with just from 150, only leaves him with 37. We can see what his total bulk is down here, 4.3 of the 5 he can carry. Not the strongest character, so you'll have to keep an eye on that. You can see that he can equip things, which will have an effect on what shows up in actions at times, and certainly what's, there are the times where you'll need to have your climbing kits, your Thieves Tool readily at hand. And that's more, in the role-playing aspect of it. I could edit this list and get rid of some things. I could come over to the campaign world and start looking at items and talk to my GM about what kind of gear is available. Could I buy myself like a disguise kit or something like that, because he does try to use that stuff. It's 2 gold pieces, which is, I have enough to get that and find out whether that's available. Could be easily added to a character, but we're just getting through the basics now. But essentially, we're almost done. We've gotten everything. There hasn't been any new indications we've missed anything. I did mention, though, we added intelligence. So here we are, back in skills. It's still on edit. Probably want to turn it off eventually. I have one more skill to add. What did he want to do with the last seconds? Maybe he wanted to look a little bit into the medicine stuff, but I've decided he wants to be a bit of a crafter. He, besides dabbling into poisons and stuff, maybe he's learned to make his own tools and learn to, sell off things or make some income on that when the thieving side of things put him into too much trouble. He's got that one more skill. You can see he's got a lot of things trained, and he's almost ready to go. Close the tracker because we've done with all that. I will want to pick an image, obviously, to go with this. Advanced stuff we could talk about with adding images and how to get them into your character. But for now, I'm going to use some of the readily available ones. Clicking on portraits will pull up a select portrait box with some folders. Everybody will have some different ones available to them. For now, I'm just going to look at what's available from the Player Core 2. This catches me all the time. Single click these. If you double click, it's going to think your first click was to choose it. Your second click is going to be whatever your mouse is over, and you're going to pick that picture. You make that mistake, you can change your portrait at any time. Don't worry about that. Easily fixed. But just a little, something to keep an eye on. Not a lot of dwarf things here, so if I wanted to go back up and look at, a different set, like maybe there was something from... Even though it's not allowed here, I do have the Guns and Gears, Knights of the Last Wall. What is the FG fantasy stuff? Maybe there's something here and there I liked better than that one. And again, we'll go over some point about how to get your own portraits and stuff in here. Looking in here, I can see some dwarf ones up here, and I'm like, you know what? Yeah, he's kind of an older rascal guy. He hadn't started much of an adventuring career. He's managed to get by in a while, so I'm just going to pick this picture. Sure enough, now we got an image that we're associated with. You can see it in the upper left hand, a token that will appear on maps, and a character that's ready to play. He's got DexCon and all that. He will have actions you'll be able to do. We'll see more about that when we get into how you interact with the game between the GM and the player. That'll be coming up in my next kind of episode on this easy series. But just to get started, you got your character. And you think, that looks pretty good. Wait, how can I not think about dice? Because that is obviously a very important part of this. Mentioned in the GM, but if you aren't familiar with that, in the upper right hand, there is those tools, and there is a box for dice. Here you can see what you have an active set, including the ability to change the body and text colors. The text color can be set to, some different stuff. And you can see now I got kind of this brilliant teal to go on top of the black. It even changes the way that looks. They're not just sort of a plain black and white one. But I could also come in and affect what kind of shades. I want that teal on sort of a bluish color to get, really lean into that combination. And sure enough, now I have, a different look to the dice. But there are some pretty fancy stuff out there that you can, peruse, and some, bunch of them are purchasable. And we'll talk about that for just a second. If you were to go in to Elemental Basics, I have those. I can't honestly tell you which ones are free and which ones are purchased, but I know I haven't bought them all. There we go. Here's the Annulus of Focus, an FX one. See, I don't have those. I click on that, pulls up a little URL saying whether I want to go there, and then I can get to the store, see some examples of it, and decide if that's for me. But for now, we're going to see what we have available by default. I can go down and pick them individually. I do the force field one. If I was like, hey, I kind of like this purple force field one, simple click, and there we go. I got the force field one. There's also a little randomizer if you just feel like trying things with a luck. This one is a Lucky Clover one. You can see kind of rolls and has those kind of nice greens. Sort of, in some ways looks very seasonal at this point. Probably could find out where I got that in here. Maybe not. It's one of these. But I could keep randomizing, and you'll see, like this one has some effects to it. This spinning elements of life. It kind of sparkles a bit there with little images, and there's a lot of exotic ones out there. If you're like me, you like to toy with your dice. You also might even be suspicious, like I can be at times, and decide that dice has not been working well for me. I'm going to change it up and see if I can find a new one and see if those work better for me. And if I like that one, you can see it has a nice little trailing tail of mist almost that comes with it. All part of the fun. That'll be part of your character. And when you start rolling dice, like a rapier attack or a fortitude saving throw, you will see, your new dice effects come with it. So I think in the basics, hopefully, that covers everything you need to know to get your foot in the door when you decide to try Pathfinder 2 for the first time out on Fantasy Grounds. There is a lot more to learn to make it even more expansive experience. There's a ton of automation to make it super easy to play, and we'll talk about things like how your character interacts on the combat tracker or on maps in future videos. I hope this has been informative, especially for those that are kind of new or interested in what Fantasy Grounds looks like out here and what it might be like to be a player in a campaign. We'll go into more of this in the near future. But for now, that's all you need to do. Go out there, fantasygrounds.com, download the game. It is free to get. You can also go out on Steam and get it from Steam. Get it loaded on your machine. Find a game, find a GM. There are places, there's buttons to click that'll take you to the forums, or if you just explore the Fantasy Grounds website, you will see all sorts of things that aid you in finding games and getting yourself more involved in the Pathfinder 2 community. And not to be remiss, not to say there are loads of other games out there. I've played Call of Cthulhu, I've played Star Wars, Edge of the Empire. I have played, obviously, a lot of the Dungeons & Dragons stuff, Castles and Crusades, did I say Call of Cthulhu already? Yeah, I mean, that one's enough to make you a little bit insane anyway, so I won't even remember if I had mentioned it before. But yes, there's a lot out there, a lot to have fun with. I hope this has helped you see some of the benefits of playing on here and, maybe give you some interest in giving it a try. So I hope to see you out there and hope to see you in the next video.